Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into some serious JFK research today.
Ooh, sounds intense.
It is. Someone sent us Volume 1, Issue 1 of the Assassination Chronicles, a news magazine just for JFK assassination buffs.
From March 30 in 1995, right.
You got it.
Cool.
They said it's a must-read, so we're putting it to the test today.
I'm excited to see what we uncover.
Me too. You know, you weren't kidding about getting an insider's perspective with this magazine.
Wow, absolutely.
I mean, we've got everything from a first-hand account of the Dallas police officer who disarmed Jack Ruby after he shot Oswald, to a deep dive into the Mannlicher Carcano rifle.
Serious stuff.
And get this, there's even a possible connection to Japan.
Japan. Now, that's something you don't hear every day in JFK assassination research.
I know, right? It really piqued my interest.
Well, let's start there then. What's the Japanese connection all about?
So this article is by Craig Roberts, a former Marine sniper.
Okay, so he knows his firearms.
For sure.
Yeah.
He really gets into the nitty-gritty of how the Mannlicher Carcano works, specifically the clip system, and his argument is that the rifle wouldn't have functioned properly without the clip.
Interesting.
Which, you know, challenges that whole 3 shots in 5.6 seconds theory.
Right. That's been a huge point of contention for years.
Totally. If the rifle itself was unreliable...
It really throws a wrench into things.
Exactly. But here's where the Japan part comes in. Roberts drops this bombshell about Japan buying up Italian-made Carcanos during World War II.
Whoa, hold on. Japan was buying these rifles.
Yep. And he even suggests, based on his analysis of the bullet grooves, that a Japanese Carcano might have been used in the assassination.
Now, that's a twist I wasn't expecting.
I know, right? Throws a whole new layer of complexity into the mix.
It makes you wonder about the chain of custody for the rifle. Like, how did it end up in Dallas?
Exactly. I tried to find more information about these Japanese Carcanos, but there's not much out there.
It's like a dead end.
Yeah, this article really left me wanting more.
Well, it just goes to show that even with a case as heavily researched as the JFK assassination, there are still gaps in our knowledge.
Totally agree. Speaking of things we don't know enough about, this issue also gets into the photos of Oswald with firearms.
Ah, yes, those infamous backyard photos, always a source of debate.
Oh, they definitely touch on those, but this article goes beyond the backyard photos.
Okay, what else do they have?
There's one of Oswald in Marine Corps training where he just happens to be the central figure.
Interesting.
Another one of him on leave, hunting with a rifle, and even one from his childhood with a cap pistol.
A cap pistol? What's the significance of that?
Well, they actually question why Gerald Posner included that photo in Case Closed.
Case closed. That was Posner's big attempt to prove Oswald acted alone.
Right.
So why include a childhood photo with a cap pistol?
It's hard to say, but the author seemed to think he was trying to create this narrative of Oswald being obsessed with firearms from a young age.
Trying to establish a pattern, maybe?
Yeah, something like that. But here's the real kicker. The article mentions a 5th backyard photo that was apparently destroyed by Marina.
Hold on, a 5th photo?
Yep, according to Marguerite Oswald's Warren Commission testimony, it showed Oswald holding a rifle above his head, and on the back it said, "To my daughter June."
To my daughter June. That's so strained. Why destroy it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The authors even point out if it was innocent, why get rid of it?
It definitely adds to the suspicions surrounding Marina.
It does. This whole magazine is full of these little details that make you question everything.
Makes you think, what else are we missing?
Exactly. Okay, ready for another curveball? This issue also has this article called Mr. X Speaks Out, Part 2.
Mr. X, who's that? Some secret witness?
Not exactly. It's Fletcher Prouty, a former Air Force colonel who worked in the Pentagon.
Oh, Prouty. He's a big name in the conspiracy theory world.
He is. And in this interview, he's talking about a New Zealand newspaper, the Christchurch Star, that published a detailed story about Oswald before he was even arraigned.
Wait, what? Before he was officially charged?
Yep. That's why Prouty thinks it's suspicious. Like, they had this prepackaged cover story ready to go.
So he's saying they were trying to frame Oswald from the get-go.
Essentially, yes. He points to the timing of the article and all the specific details it had about Oswald.
That is strange.
He also mentions the Star ran a story about a getaway car being seized in Fort Worth, which we know never happened.
So intentionally planting false information to muddy the waters.
That seems to be his point. He also talks about a speech JFK was supposed to give in Dallas that day, saying it would have changed history if he'd lived.
Ooh, what was the speech about?
He doesn't go into specifics, but he says it's in his book.
Another one for the reading list.
Right. It sounds like this Mr. X interview is full of intriguing claims.
It definitely is. I mean, he even brings up those initial reports of automatic gunfire,
Oh, yeah.
which, wouldn't match up with the single-bolt action Mannlicher Carcano.
Another inconsistency that's always fueled the conspiracy theories.
For sure. It's amazing how every detail we uncover just leads to more questions.
It's like peeling back layers of an onion, and there's always another layer underneath.
Well said. There's one more article I want to talk about before we move on to the next part.
Lay it on me. What else did this magazine have in store for us? This one is about Dr. Ronald C. Jones, one of the doctors who treated JFK at Parkland Hospital.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of him.
He's been very vocal about how his observations didn't line up with the official autopsy findings.
That's right. He challenged the whole bullets from behind narrative, didn't he?
Exactly. This article focuses on how he's always maintained that JFK's wounds just weren't compatible with the official story.
It's pretty powerful to have a medical professional who was actually there in the trauma room contradicting the official version of events.
It is. It makes you wonder if there were other medical staff who felt the same way, but maybe weren't as outspoken.
It's possible. It's interesting to think about the historical context, too, This was the early 90s, decades after the assassination.
Right. Maybe the political climate was different then, more open to questioning the official narrative.
Perhaps. It would have been fascinating to hear from more of the people who were there that day, both medical staff and law enforcement.
Absolutely. Their firsthand accounts are invaluable pieces of the puzzle.
Couldn't agree more. And speaking of puzzle pieces, let's circle back to those photos of Oswald with firearms.
Oh, yeah. We haven't even gotten to the really intriguing stuff about those yet.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about these photos, besides the backyard ones.
Well, there's this one of Oswald in Marine Corps training. It's a line of men firing rifles, and Oswald just happens to be the one right in the center.
Interesting. Was this just a coincidence, or was it staged somehow?
That's what the authors are trying to figure out. They even speculate that maybe each man took turns being the front man, so everyone got a photo where they were the focus.
That would be quite the coincidence if it wasn't intentional.
Right. Either way, it's a clear image of Oswald with a rifle during his time in the Marines.
Which definitely adds to the whole debate about his familiarity with firearms.
It does. And it makes you think about why these photos were taken in the first place.
Right, were they just routine training photos, or was there something more calculated going on?
Good question. It's a reminder that even seemingly mundane photos can have hidden meanings.
Speaking of hidden meanings, what about that photo of Oswald on leave, hunting with a rifle?
Oh, yeah, that one's interesting, too. It's more of a casual setting compared to the posed backyard photos. He's just standing in a field looking like any other hunter.
It kind of humanizes him in a way.
Right. It reminds us that even figures involved in these huge historical events were real people with everyday lives.
It's easy to forget that sometimes.
Totally. And then there's that childhood photo with the cap pistol, which the authors think Posner included to paint Oswald as having this lifelong obsession with guns.
It's all about shaping the narrative, isn't it?
Absolutely. But then there's that destroyed fifth backyard photo, the one with the inscription, "To my daughter, June."
I'm still stuck on that one. It's just so bizarre.
I know. Why destroy it if there was nothing to hide?
It just fuels the mystery surrounding Marina and what she knows.
For sure. It's one of those details that makes you go, there's something more to this story.
It really does. It makes you wonder how much evidence has been lost or destroyed over the years.
Right. Potentially obscuring the truth.
Speaking of potentially obscured truths, what about that Mr. X Speaks Out article? You mentioned it earlier.
Oh, yeah. That one's a doozy. It's part 2 of an interview with Fletcher Prouty, the former Air Force colonel.
Oh, right. He claims to have inside knowledge about a government plot to assassinate JFK.
Exactly. And in this part of the interview, he's talking about this New Zealand newspaper, the Christchurch Star, that published a detailed story about Oswald before he was even formally charged.
Wait, a New Zealand newspaper? How would they have gotten that information so quickly?
That's exactly what Prouty finds suspicious. He thinks it points to some kind of pre-packaged cover story that was ready to go even before Oswald became the prime suspect.
Wow, that's a pretty big accusation.
It is. He mainly points to the timing of the article and how much specific information it had about Oswald.
That is strange.
He also mentions they ran a story about a getaway car being seized in Fort Worth, which never actually happened.
Intentionally spreading disinformation.
That seems to be what Prouty's getting at. He also talks about a speech JFK was supposed to give that day, saying it would change the course of history.
Ooh, what was the speech about?
He doesn't say in the article, just mentions it's quoted in his book.
Another book for the to-read pile.
Right. It seems like this Mr. X interview is just full of intriguing claims.
It definitely is. He even brings up those initial reports of automatic gunfire, which wouldn't match the Mannlicher Carcano rifle.
Yeah, another inconsistency that's always fueled the conspiracy theories.
It all adds to the mystery, doesn't it?
It does. It seems like every detail we uncover just leads to more questions.
That's the nature of this case, I suppose. It's a rabbit hole of historical intrigue.
Well said. But before we go down that rabbit hole too far, there's one more article I want to touch on.
Okay, what else have we got?
This one's about Dr. Ronald C. Jones, one of the doctors who treated JFK at Parkland Hospital.
Oh, I've heard of him. He's been outspoken about his observations conflicting with the official autopsy findings.
That's right. He's always maintained that what he saw didn't match up with the story, that the bullets were fired from above and behind.
It's remarkable that a medical professional who is actually there has consistently challenged the accepted version of events.
It definitely adds weight to the argument that there's more to the story than we've been told.
Absolutely. His perspective, based on his direct observations, can't be easily dismissed. It raises serious questions about the thoroughness and accuracy of the official investigations.
You know, this whole issue of the Assassination Chronicles has been a real eye-opener. It's like a glimpse into this whole world of JFK assassination research, and it's clear there are still so many unanswered questions.
It's a reminder that history is never truly settled. There's always more to uncover, more perspectives to consider, and more to learn. And that's what makes this kind of deep dive so rewarding. It really does make you think, what else are we missing?
Exactly. And, you know, we were just talking about Dr. Jones and how his observations didn't match the official autopsy. This next article actually goes a little deeper into his perspective.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so to recap, Dr. Jones was part of the Parkland trauma team, right? The ones that worked on JFK.
That's right. One of the first to examine him after the shooting. And he never backed down from saying that what he saw didn't match up with the official autopsy findings.
It's pretty significant when a medical professional, someone who was actually there in the trauma room, contradicts the official story.
Totally. And this article really highlights how careful he was with his wording when describing the wounds.
Oh, how so?
Well, he uses terms like compatible and general. Almost like he's acknowledging there's some uncertainty.
That makes sense. He was working in a really chaotic situation.
Right,
Yeah.
Exactly. But he's also crystal clear that he does not believe the official story that the bullets were fired from above and behind.
So, yet another medical professional casting doubt on the lone gunman theory. Makes you wonder if other members of the Parkland staff maybe had their own doubts but were hesitant to speak up.
It's hard to believe that Dr. Jones was the only one who noticed these things.
I think it's important to remember the time period, too. This was the early 90s, decades after the assassination. Maybe the political climate was different then, more open to challenging the official story.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I would love to hear more from the people who were there, the medical staff, law enforcement, anyone who saw what happened.
Totally. Those firsthand accounts are so valuable, like little pieces of the puzzle. Speaking of, I'm still thinking about those photos of Oswald with firearms that we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah. We haven't even gotten to the really juicy stuff about those yet.
Okay, well, I'm ready. What else is there besides the backyard photos?
Well, there's this photo of Oswald in Marine Corps training. Just a line of guys firing rifles. But guess who's the central figure?
Oswald.
Bingo. It really makes you wonder if it was staged.
I was going to say, what are the chances?
Right. The authors even suggest that maybe they each took turns being the front man, so everyone would have a picture where they were the focus.
That would be quite a coincidence. Either way, it's a pretty clear image of Oswald with a rifle, back when he was in the Marines.
Definitely adds to the whole debate about how familiar he was with firearms.
Absolutely. Makes you think about why these photos were taken and shared in the first place.
Good point. Like, were they just routine training photos, or was there something more deliberate going on?
Exactly. It's a reminder that even ordinary photos can have hidden meanings, especially when you're talking about a historical event like this.
Totally agree. Speaking of hidden meanings, what about that photo of Oswald hunting with a rifle? The one where he was on leave.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one, too. It's a lot more casual than the backyard photos, right? He just looks like a regular guy out hunting.
Yeah, definitely. I think it humanizes him in a way.
Yeah.
We tend to forget that people involved in these big historical events were also just regular people.
It's true. Easy to get caught up in the drama and forget there were real people with real lives behind it all.
Exactly. And then there's that childhood photo with the cap pistol that the authors think Posner used to try and portray Oswald as obsessed with guns.
Oh, it all comes back to shaping the narrative, doesn't it?
It really does.
Mm.
But, out of all the photos, I think the destroyed fifth backyard photo, the one with the inscription to his daughter, is the one that sticks with me the most.
I know, that one is so strange. Like, what was he trying to say with that?
Right. And why would Marina destroy it if it was innocent?
It just adds to the whole mystery surrounding Marina, doesn't it?
It really does. Out of all the details in this magazine, that's the one that makes me go, there's something more to this story.
It definitely does. And it makes you wonder, I mean, how much evidence has been lost or destroyed over the years that could, help shed light on what really happened.
Right. All these missing pieces of the puzzle. Speaking of which, remember that Mr. X Speaks Out article we talked about earlier?
Oh, yeah. That's the one with Fletcher Prouty, the former Air Force colonel,
Yeah,
right?
got it. And this part of the interview, he's discussing this New Zealand newspaper, the Christchurch Star. And get this, they published a super detailed story about Oswald before he was even arraigned.
Wait, before he was officially charged? But how would they have known all that information?
Exactly. That's why Prouty finds it so suspicious. He thinks it points to some kind of pre-packaged cover story that was already in place, even before Oswald became the main suspect.
That's a pretty bold claim.
It is. He mainly points to the timing of the article and how much detail it had about Oswald.
That is pretty strange.
He also mentions that the Christchurch Star ran a story about a getaway car being seized in Fort Worth, which we know didn't happen.
So, like, purposely planting false information.
Seems like that's what Prouty's getting at.
Wow.
Oh, and he also talks about a speech JFK was supposed to give in Dallas, saying it would have changed history if he had lived.
Oh, interesting. Do we know what the speech was about? Was it something controversial?
He doesn't go into specifics, but he mentions it's quoted in his book.
Another one for the reading list.
Right. This whole interview is full of interesting tidbits.
Definitely. He also brings up the whole thing about those early reports of automatic gunfire, which doesn't match up with the Mannlicher Carcano rifle at all.
Right. Another inconsistency that fuels the conspiracy theories.
It all adds to the mystery, The more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know.
That's so true. Before we get too lost in the mystery, though, there's one more article I wanted to bring to your attention. And this one is about, wait for it, Craig Roberts.
Oh, the former Marine sniper. The one who wrote about the Mannlicher Carcano.
That's the one. So this isn't about the rifle itself, but about Roberts' response to a pretty scathing review of his book, Kill Zone. A sniper looks at Dealey Plaza.
Ooh, behind-the-scenes drama.
I know, right? So apparently the reviewer was pretty harsh, basically dismissing Roberts' whole analysis and questioning his expertise on the assassination.
That's kind of rough. I mean, Roberts is a former Marine sniper. He definitely brings a unique perspective to the table.
I agree. And Roberts really goes in on the reviewer, calls him out for being arrogant and dismissive. He really defends his research and his expertise.
Well, yeah, I can imagine. Writing a book is a lot of work, I bet it stings when someone just writes it off like that.
Totally. And, I think it also says something about how hard it is to be taken seriously in the JFK research community. There's always someone questioning your credentials, your motives, everything.
It's like everyone's fighting for credibility, It must be exhausting.
It must be. But it also makes you appreciate how dedicated these researchers are.
For sure. I mean, this whole magazine is a testament to that. The depth of their research, the attention to detail. It's really impressive.
It is. And it just goes to show that even after all these years, there are still so many unanswered questions about the JFK assassination.
It's a reminder that history is never really settled, There's always something new to discover, another angle to consider, and that's what makes it so fascinating, right?
Absolutely. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the Assassination Chronicles.
I know. Can you believe how much we've unpacked already?
It's amazing what you can find in these old magazines, right?
Totally. So what else have you got for us?
Well, there's one more article I wanted to mention, but it's a little different.
Oh, how so?
It's not about a specific piece of evidence or a witness account.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It actually focuses on Craig Roberts.
The former Marine sniper.
The one and only.
I liked his article about the Mannlicher Carcano.
Me too. He really knows his stuff.
So what's his article about then?
Well, it's actually his response to a pretty scathing review of his book, Kill Zone. A sniper looks at Dealey Plaza.
Oh, wow. A bad review.
Yeah, it sounds like it was pretty brutal.
I mean, I can understand why an author would be upset about that.
Especially when you've put so much work into your research.
Exactly. So what did the reviewer say?
Well, they basically dismissed Roberts' whole analysis and questioned his expertise on the assassination.
Seriously. I mean, he's a former Marine sniper. He brings a pretty unique perspective.
Right. And Roberts doesn't hold back in his response. He calls the reviewer arrogant and dismissive.
I bet. What else did he say?
He really defends his research and his expertise.
I can imagine.
It makes you think about how hard it is to be taken seriously in this field.
Yeah, the JFK Assassination research community.
Exactly. There's always someone questioning your motives, your credentials, everything.
It's like a constant battle for credibility.
It must be exhausting, honestly.
But it also shows how passionate these researchers are.
Absolutely. I mean, they're willing to go to bat for their work.
And for the truth, They really want to get to the bottom of what happened.
That's what's so fascinating about this whole thing, isn't it?
It's a story that just keeps unfolding.
Exactly. There's always another layer to peel back, another question to ask.
And even after all these years, we're still uncovering new details and challenging the official narrative.
It really makes you realize that history is never truly settled.
It's an ongoing process of discovery and reinterpretation.
Well said. I think that's a great note to end on.
I agree.
This deep dive into the Assassination Chronicles has been a wild ride.
It really has.
We've uncovered so much intriguing information, and honestly, more questions than answers.
That's the beauty of it, though, isn't it? The mystery keeps us coming back for more.
Absolutely. So to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to keep digging, keep researching, keep asking questions.
Don't be afraid to challenge the official story and explore those alternative theories.
Visit the Sixth Floor Museum, read the books, immerse yourself in the history.
You might be surprised at what you find.
And remember, the search for truth is a journey. And sometimes the journey is just as important as the destination.
Well said. Until next time, keep those sources coming.
And we'll see you on our next deep dive into the unknown.